morning and afternoon teas and lunches and after the conference and stuff, because we finish at 3:30 every day. All right, let's move on. Can we please bring to the stage, bring to the podium, Francis Carlton from Wild Talk.
There you go. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm not a morning person, so being up at 6:30 this morning has kind of impacted my my brain function. I think this is the go button. Okay. Oh my God, they got my slides. Awesome. I'm here. You all know me. Most of you know me. Just by show of hands, who knows who I am or what we do? Okay. Who's never heard of me and thinking, oh my God, who the hell is this person? Right. Okay. There's a few over there. There's a few over there. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. And the next show of hands, who here, by show of hands, doesn't like people? No, be honest. I want you to be honest. Okay? Okay? All right. Okay. So what I do is I provide mental health for you lot. So when I know that you don't like people, it's important to know why you got into doing what you're doing. And most of you got into it because you want to look after animals and you want to be there for animals and you want to support animals. Unfortunately, we also have to deal with people in the process, whether it's other organisation members, members of the public, government bodies for grants, etc., etc. So people, unfortunately, do come into this. And what I'm talking about today is a topic called moral injury. Now, my observations over the last few years has been that a lot of you have experienced trauma, but the trauma that you've experienced hasn't necessarily been grief and loss and fear of life, which is what generally results in PTSD or PTS. It's actually a thing called moral injury. So I'm going to explain to you what that is. Everyone ready? Gird your loins. Right. I have lollies for people who answer questions. And if you were at Perth, was anyone at Perth? Okay, so those of you that were at Perth will remember and be thankful that you have no glasses in front of you on your tables right now. Because when I chucked one of these in Perth, it hit a glass perfectly and the glass went poof. So, no glasses. So, okay, let's do this thing. Okay, just going to give you a little bit about who we are, what moral injury is, and then what you can do to help us. We started in 2020 officially, but I actually started doing this work in 2015 through my private practice. That little photograph there is Kevin. Kevin is a brown snake. Wild Talk exists because of a brown snake. So all of you that don't like snakes, fuck it up. Because I'm a reptile person and they play an absolutely vital part in the ecosystems of this country. So Kevin and his little smiley face there is the reason why I fell in love with the mental health of wildlife carers. We are an employee assistance program or a volunteer assistance program for you. That means we provide you with counselling and debriefing, structured debriefing. We also have the capacity to do training, whether that's online through Zoom or we can come to you. We have a whole range of stuff. We have a whole range of resources as well that are all written and geared specifically for the wildlife caring audience, not generic materials. When we have money, which is never, we offer grants, although we have given a few grants, and we are a charity with DGR status. You can access us 24/7. We have somebody who answers the phone and we cover the whole country, regardless of where you are. We also don't care about your status, whether you're a volunteer or a paid employee. If you are working, and I will use that phrase, working, whether you're paid or unpaid, it is a job and it is hard work. Whether you're working in a paid or volunteer role, you can call us. It does not need to be about wildlife. if you experience any other mental health issue and it is impacting your ability to do your wildlife work, you can call us. You get 6 sessions, up to 6 sessions, but unlike traditional EAPs, employee assistance programs, we don't cut you off at 6. If you've built a relationship with your therapist, we will continue to see you. We just ask that you contribute something going forward. And you will usually get an appointment with us within 24 hours of you making a call. No 8 to 12 week waits, like some businesses. We also understand the language that you speak. You will never need to explain to us what an incident is. We know the language. We know what a Joey is. We know what a Pinky is. We know what it smells like, sounds like, and to be on the ground at something like a heat stress event. You don't need to tell us what that is. So we're a specialist. We're here for you. Now, let me show you some numbers. We've been going since 2020. We incorporated on the 20th of January 2020, 8 months earlier than we had originally planned because of the bushfires. Now, since then, these are just the last financial year and the year before. Since then, we've done over 5,500 hours. Actually, we're getting up to nearly 6,000 hours of support. But just in the last 12 months, there is a slight reduction because we were closed for the first half of this calendar year because we basically completely ran out of money. And my brain went, hey, let me chuck an aneurysm. And I went, no, I'm done. I need to have a break. So I had to stop because I couldn't be working full time to pay my bills and provide 30 plus hours a week of counselling support. So there was a bit of a drop, but not a complete drop because we still did 70 hours of support. I still did 70 hours of support based on the floods, based on the court case in New South Wales and the koala cull in Victoria. So we also support members of the public as well if they're calling about animals. So members of the public. So in the last financial year, we did 1,280 hours of support. And that's when we were closed for half of the year. We have a gender split of 5 females to 1 male. 95% of callers are still attending to their wildlife work, but 5% have given up. Now, given the demographic that's in this room, you can't afford to lose 5% every year. You need support. And most of them are giving it up because they just can't cope from a mental health perspective or a financial perspective anymore. Now, that big 7 is the number of lives we lost in the last financial year. The reason we decided to reopen was because 3 of those were in the first part of this calendar year. And I said, I need to give this another go, but I need support this time. That number has remained static, 1 or 2 either side of that every year we've been open. It's too many, way too many. 1 is too many. Especially when you look at the demographics of suicide with 1 in 4 being female. But we're representing 7 just in our industry. It's a lot. Regrettably, that number is also possibly higher because we only hear about it anecdotally. Wildlife volunteer status isn't recorded in the national stats. Whatever your substantive position in life is what gets recorded. So if you're a nurse in your day job and you volunteer on the side, nurse is what gets recorded. If you're a retiree, that's what gets recorded. So we know about these 7 because people have rung us and said, I don't want to end up like my mate. And a bit of investigation and digging reveals what they're talking about. So this is an anecdotal number. Reasons for calling. Number 1, year on, every single year we've been open, 49% bullying and harassment, interpersonal issues within organisations. Trauma, 23%. Grief and bereavement, 17%. And with what topic this year? Climate and habitat grief, is the new thing that's really coming forward and really emerging. 11% of our callers are members of the public. People who have hit animals, people who have spoken to somebody and had been struggling with whatever's been happening with the culls. You know, in the ACT, we have an annual kangaroo cull every year. Busiest time of the year for us right now, doing that. 50% of those calls are members of the public who hear the gunshots in the night. So it's an issue. People care, people want to talk to somebody. So let's have a chat about moral injury. And this is where you lot get lollies thrown at you for answering questions. Okay. Moral. It's an adjective. It's concerning the principles of right and wrong behaviour. Question. Is that subjective? Right. Excellent. 2, holding and manifesting high principles of proper conduct. Is that subjective? Right. And lessons that can be derived from story or experience. Subjective? Yes and no, but more yes. Okay. So when we think about adjectives, meaning the word is it's the modifier, it's the name of something. That's a wombat. That's the noun. The adjectives are. It is a wombat. It is a wombat. Fish. Are you sure it's a wombat? Okay. They are. If we're going to describe it, we use adjectives by saying things like sturdy, rotund, mischievous, fat, hard-headed, endangered. So just take a moment. You've all got your notepads. I've got a bit of time, so you've got time for some exercising and some reflection. Because this is mental health, so reflections are important. Just take a note of some definitions that you have in place in your world around moral principles. Some things that you think of when you think of morality. What are things that you think of when you think of the morality of wildlife caring, or even in your own personal world outside of wildlife caring? Because I know this is a bit of a shock to many of you, but there is actually life outside of wildlife caring. It's okay, you can all, you didn't hear that, let me say it again. Okay, ready to move on? Just take a note of those things that you've written down for yourself, or even if you just thought about it. Now, there's 2 different types of moral. There's absolute morals. These are unchanging and universal. They're based on universal truths of being a human being. An example, murder is wrong. It goes against the natural order of things. I know, I can hear the accepts, I can hear the accepts, I can hear the accepts, it's okay. The universal truth, though, is that murder is wrong. Okay? And then there's the relative. It's dependent on the situation. So by the very nature of what we do as wildlife carers, we are going against an absolute quite often. And we're also taking into consideration the situation. So about 2 years ago, I was reading a book by a journalist, and this phrase, moral injury, came up. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what my wildlife carers have got. Because it looks and feels and smells and sounds an awful lot like PTSD, but it's subjective. And we don't treat it in the same way. So when we look at morals, we need to look at our own personal values. Our own personal values will determine how we are impacted by the work that we do with wildlife. And I say we, I still do rescues. I'm just not a member of an organisation. But every single time I have to do a rescue, every single time it still gets me in here. And when I know that I'm going to have to take that animal to be euthanized, it still gets me in here. So, but there's personal values. So if you don't know what your personal values are, it might be worth having a think about it, because it will determine how the work that you do with animals impacts you. Okay. Moral injury. It's a little bit gnarly, this one, because you can be a victim, a perpetrator, and a bystander at the same incident. It is a traumatic injury where your moral belief is held by an individual is damaged in some way. It can result from any life event in which a person faces a moral dilemma resulting in that person, you, being subject to either perpetrating a thing that you don't think, you know, how many times has someone had to euthanize an animal? You think you could rescue it and you want to give it a chance, but you just can't. You can also be the victim of behaviours from other people. I know there's people in the room that have been the victims of other people's behaviour. And you can also be a bystander by witnessing and not acting. So you can be all three in one incident. But it's where you transgress deeply a held moral belief or an expectation of a behaviour in the thing, organisations specifically here. And it refers to the psychological, social and spiritual impact of events involving betrayal or transgression of your deeply held belief. Exposure to morally injurious experiences can lead individuals to experience guilt, shame, depression, burnout. Some events and situations may cause someone to abandon their views of themselves as being competent or unworthy. It can also occur when personal expectations, religious beliefs, or cultural norms are transgressed. See what I was saying about it when I said about it being a bit gnarly and a bit complicated? In some populations, it can lead to cynicism and self-destructive behaviour. We especially encourage others when we're encouraging others and coercing others to take actions that they don't believe in for the good of the organisation, for the good of the animal. But what we're seeing in recent research is that moral injury is originally defined in combat situations. It's now being very recognised in traditional first responder communities, and of course journalists in war zones, and without a doubt the unrecognised first responders that are in this room right now. Yeah? Okay. Impacts. We have trauma symptoms. Hang on. Trauma symptoms. So we see emotional changes, behavioural changes, and spiritual belief changes. It can come with a range of symptoms. It can also include difficulty in relationships and spirituality. These symptoms are coming from guilt and shame and anger and sadness and the loss of trust in the self and others. Whereas PTS, post-traumatic stress, is coming from fear of loss of life, fear of damage to self. So this is coming from a guilt and shame base rather than an I'm going to die base. But the symptoms are very, very similar. So guilt, intense feelings of remorse and regret, shame, negative self-evaluation, feelings of being unworthy of doing the job or respect, anger, frustration, resentment. Of course, resentment is one of the four horsemen of emotions. And these are possibly directed at the self, but also at others. Usually others in the first instance. We also have sadness, grief and despair related to the experience and the surrounding situation. Anxiety, a feeling of fear and unease without necessarily a clear cause of that anxiety. I'm just feeling off. I'm just feeling anxious. I can't seem to figure out what it is. And disgust, being repulsed about the event, about oneself, about others, and about situations. And we won't always necessarily know and be able to pinpoint those feelings to that incident. Behavioural symptoms can be avoidance, so avoiding situations, people, places that remind you of the events. Changes in behaviour, so this includes self-sabotaging behaviours. This is difficulty with maintaining and building relationships in personal life and work. Self-punishment, that feeling of, am I the one who's going mad? Am I the one that did something wrong? Yeah, that internal. And of course the intrusive thoughts where your brain is talking to you and going, yeah. It can also have relational and social symptoms. Loss of trust, difficulties with intimacy, and we're not just talking about nookie there, we're talking about intimacy in relationships generally, friendships. Although you're all wildlife carers, so you're not doing that anyway because you're feeding animals in the middle of the night. All right. That's why reptiles are good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a sex therapist in my private practice. So withdrawal from others. Yeah. And then, of course, we've got the spiritual and existential symptoms as well. So spiritual crisis, not believing, questioning your faith and your beliefs. Loss of meaning. Why am I doing this? What's the meaning of life, even? And then, of course, we also go back to that self-criticism, the general hopelessness, despair, and ultimately, potentially, suicidal thoughts and ideations in severe cases. This is not an easy thing. It's complicated, it's big, and it looks an awful lot like PTSD. Now, you do not need to read this. If you want a copy of my slides, I'm happy to send them to you. All you need to do is flick me an email at the end, or we might even be able to get them distributed through the mailing list for everyone that's coming. This is the pathway to traumatic stress injuries. Now, really, the reason for me showing you this is because the blue box is the traditional PTSD terror fear pathway. The one in the middle, the green one, is traumatic loss, which you guys also experience quite regularly. And then the bottom is the moral injury pathway. But the interesting thing is that the round circles on the end are the same for all three. It's just the pathway to get there is a little bit different. Okay, now you can take a photograph of this if you want to, but you actually don't need to because I will send you it. And I didn't print out 120 of them. Okay, so this is where we're going to do a little bit of this. I want you to turn to the person next to you. We'll work in threes. It's turned up to you. We've got like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. To just think about everything that I've already spoken about and just think that what things may, and I don't want you telling horror stories. This is not the horror story Olympics. I just want you to acknowledge to the person or the persons around you, if you think you have experienced what I've just spoken about already. Just talk amongst yourselves. You've got 5 minutes. What have we got? Have we got a yes? Have we got a no? Have we got what we got? Okay, I'll leave you alone then.
We nodded.
You nodded? You nodded? So think about what how your personal values may have come into that. If you think you don't know what your personal values are, maybe it's something to follow up on later. Because how you manage it is from that.
It is interesting, like managing your personal values with like your carer support network. Everyone's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. and everybody's values will be different. There'll be some in common, but there'll be others that aren't.
Yeah.
Yes, no, nod. I'm going to throw those out in a minute because I'm going to ask a question.
My moral injury is you said what is my moral? It's what you expect of yourself and you expect of other people. Is that right?
It can be. It's values. Yeah. So it's and because it's so subjective.
Yeah.
When somebody transgresses what we believe should have happened, we can absolutely get moral injury from that.
Oh, I think that's definitely yes.
Well, that's why I say everybody in this room's got it to a degree. Everyone.
And you?
What do you reckon? Do we all nod? Did we all kind of go, yeah, probably, maybe, possibly? Yeah?
Like you, I
outside.
don't think I've experienced it, but I've been very lucky. And I know I've been very lucky.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get you to do a survey afterwards. So.
So we were saying our local committee has made this decision that if you come across an injury that needs to be euthanized, you cannot take it. You cannot euthanize. You have to wait for a shooter.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And